If I haven't met you yet, I am Adam Jahr. I'm the founder of Vue Mastery. You may have seen some of our videos on YouTube or read one of our blogs, or I explored our course library over at VueMastery.com. And that is a guide through the Vue ecosystem so you can master your craft and elevate your code and really reach your highest potential as a Vue developer. Now, while on that platform, we focus on all the topics in the Vue ecosystem. Today, in this talk, we're going to look at the topic of Nuxt, specifically some maybe underused or newer features that you might not be using. So whether you're a newcomer or you're considering adopting Nuxt, or maybe you've been tunnel visioned into solving your own problems, we're going to take a look at kind of this treasure trove of Nuxt gems that are available to you to make sure you know they're there and how to use them. So I invite you to join me as we take this tour. It's really a sample platter of sorts. We're going to pick apart features such as performance, middleware, some full stack with the Nuxt server. We're going to look at the Nuxt UI, Nuxt Content, and the Studio. And then we're going to finish up with some DevTools customization. And you'll see this little guy here that's a little avatar that's going to help us guide this experience. And you'll notice he's wearing a sweatshirt. That's because there's going to be a pop quiz at the end of this where the winner of that quiz, whoever answers it correctly first, gets a exclusive Vue Mastery hoodie. So pay attention because there is a test and you will be handsomely rewarded. All right, so without further ado, let's dive into the first section. We're going to look at performance. Now, when used to its max potential, Nuxt can be really a performance powerhouse. So we're going to look at some tools to really turbocharge our projects. To do that, we're going to look at this really simple news app. Just pulling in and displaying some articles here on the home page. So now when we ran this through the Lighthouse and got the performance score, it was a 56. Now, how can we take this more modest score and transform it into something that we can be a little more proud of? We're going to look at how we can implement delayed hydration, image optimization, and dynamic imports to move that score from a 56 all the way up to a 96. So first step to improving our score, we're going to install the Nuxt delay hydration module. Then once we have that in our app, we can configure this module in our Nuxt config file. And it comes with the ability to configure the optimization of our app with this delay hydration object. The debug option allows us to hydrate our app in dev mode and view the hydration logs in the browser after our app loads. We can also add an option that determines the hydration mode we want, and there's going to be several mode options. So init is going to display all the scripts from loading until the hydration promise is resolved, whereas the mount is going to delay Nuxt during the mounting process so that the plugins and certain third-party libraries and scripts are still going to function, but our layout and page components will be postponed. So with that delayed hydration implemented, now we can see we boosted that score up to 89, which is pretty good improvement, but we're going to keep it going. So let's move on to optimizing the images. We'll install the Nuxt image module, then head into our config and add it to the modules array. Now to use it, we can simply replace our image tags like this guy right here. We'll just swap him out for the Nuxt image tags, like so. And now if we were to inspect this in the browser, we're going to see some interesting things. So it's going to render the native image tag and the attributes attached to it. And Nuxt image takes care of attaching an error event for us, even though that wasn't in our original code. And then finally, we have an src set attribute that ensures the correct size and image are being applied during the render. Cool. And there's a long list of configuration options that allows users to set things such as quality and format if needed. For our simple little application, we're not going to do that, but that is available in the docs, demonstrate how to do and what's available for you. All right, so with the image optimization in place, now we can see our score is up to 94, which is obviously we're making great improvement. But let's push it even just a little bit further, and we'll do that with dynamic imports. So by dynamic imports, we're really talking about lazy loading content as it's needed. This could be useful for things like loading a page when a user routes to it, or loading content only when it becomes visible in the viewport, things like that. You've heard about that today. So to implement lazy loading in our app here, we're going to simply tack the lazy prefix onto the component that we want to lazy load. In this case, it's going to be this article card here. Those are all the cards in the home page of our app. So we'll just swap that out for the lazy article card, and we get that dynamic importing functionality. And with that, we can see that the performance score just got a little bit better and now sits at 96. All right. Now, as we saw with lazy loading components for specific routes as we need them, route handling is a crucial part of optimizing our user experience in Nuxt apps. So let's explore another way to fine-tune our app's behavior based on routing, and that is Nuxt middleware. Now, route middleware is code that's going to be running on the client before navigating to a specific route. You can think of it like a checkpoint, and that vigilant bouncer who makes sure that you have the proper credentials, maybe you're wearing the collared shirt and everything, so that you can get into where you need to, and don't if you don't have those credentials. And it's really a standardized system for this kind of route gatekeeping in Nuxt apps. If you're unfamiliar with middleware, the term might seem a bit intimidating, but really it's just fundamentally a JavaScript function, and it's going to receive two parameters always. That's going to be the to and the from parameters. In other words, we will know where the user is routing to and where they are coming from, and then we can do a bunch of stuff based on that information. And these are essentially route objects. They're going to have things that you would expect, like params, query, and path, so that you can check for and then run code for your needs. So what is a way that we can be using middleware? Common use case is to navigate users to a specific page, based on whatever condition. And to achieve this, we're going to use the Nuxt middleware global helper method called navigate to. So let's say, for example, we want to check if our user is an admin, and if they are not, we would redirect them to a login page. The way we would do this is we'd check if the to path is the admin route, and if the user does not have an admin property, we'd then redirect them using the navigate to helper, and then pass in the name there of the route we want them to go to. In this case, it is the login one, as I mentioned. Cool. And we can also configure this optionally. We can define things such as whether or not we want to replace the browser history. This means by default it's false, but we can make it true. But by false, it means that the user can still hit the back button. And we can set up a redirect code and also make it true that we can route to and redirect to an external page. So for example, if we wanted to redirect to a URL that lived outside of the apps configured within, the routes configured within our apps, we could do that by setting external true. All right, so how do we actually use our middleware within the context of a component? So in here, in the script section, you can see we will add the define page meta function, and this is a global Nuxt3 function, and it's going to allow us to configure page settings. And then we'll add the middleware inside here. And this is what we call, because it's inline, we call this inline middleware. But alternatively, we can extract our middleware into its own file. And we can add that into the middleware directory. So now we have that admin.js in the middleware. And this is going to allow us to simply add the name of our middleware into an array wherever it is needed. And this is called named middleware. And it can lead to more maintainable and scalable implementation of middleware because you can, like I said, have that middleware, add it where you need it, and just reuse it instead of having to manually input it into every single defined page meta of each component. And another option for middleware, beyond inline and named, is global. So we can make middleware available literally anywhere we need it, and it's very straightforward to do this. We just append the global suffix onto our middleware's file name like so. Then we can get rid of anything within the component because it's already available to us. All right, moving on to the next gem within Nuxt. We've heard quite a bit about the Nuxt Nitro server today. And it's another reason that Nuxt is on the edge of innovation in the web development world. To summarize, in case you're unfamiliar, it's a lightning-fast universal server engine, and it simplifies our creation of highly optimized apps across various environments with minimal configuration. And a really key component of this is that it auto-generates API endpoints based on our directory structure. And this is an awesome thing we're going to take a look at here. So if we want to make use of this, inside of our server folder, in the API folder, we can create a new file, such as right here. We have a Pokemon, more Pokemon today, a Pokemon file, which now means we have an endpoint called Pokemon, just automatically. And inside of here, we can use the define event handler. This is a utility function that is going to allow us to define the event handler for this API route. And it essentially wraps your API logic and provides you with a context object. And this is going to make it easier to handle requests and send responses. So what do we want it to do? Let's just have it fetch a Pokemon. We'll have it fetch Pikachu from the Poke API. Notice how we're using fetch. This is a built-in Nuxt method that can make HTTP requests both on the client and the server. So now from within a component, we can simply call useFetch on that endpoint like so. So really nice and clean way to do so. And as you can see, we're targeting that API folder and the file within it in the in the parameter of the useFetch. Cool. And if you're not familiar with useFetch, it's composable for fetching data specifically within the script setup block. And it's going to leverage the Vue reactivity system so that it's going to auto-fetch the data when the component is created and then updates when its dependencies change. Now, often, as I'm sure many of you have experienced, the data that you get back from your requests is going to contain a lot of unnecessary information that you don't need to be sending over to your user. So what we can do here within the endpoint itself is we can sculpt that data. So here we can create some ideal data. Maybe we only want the ID, name, and sprite from that Pokemon information we got back, and then return that sculpted minimal version, and that's going to be a performance improvement for us. Cool. So obviously this is all well and good, but it's hard-coded, so how do we make these endpoints dynamic? To do this, we're going to simply add brackets around our file name, like so. Then we can grab the params of our event context, then pass it in dynamically into our fetch request. Now, whichever Pokemon we're calling for from the component, we have the ability to dynamically return that via our custom crafted API. All right, so switching gears to another Nuxt gem in the treasure trove. Let's talk about Nuxt UI. You've seen it throughout today. It's essentially a built-in set of components that we can build out UIs with. It actually has 35 UI components and climbing. When I initially made this slide, it was 30, so we keep on adding more. And it really simplifies the interface design for responsive web apps. And it's built on headless UI and Tailwind CSS. So if you're familiar with either of those, then you're going to have a familiar workflow if you're working with the Nuxt UI components. With Nuxt UI, you can set up a color palette and have your components styled according to that palette. You can also have access to a diverse collection of icons really effortlessly through the icon component or prop. And it has a set of view composables that's going to simplify your implementation of keyboard shortcuts if you need them. And the library is fully customizable. So you have the flexibility to modify component styles either globally through the app config or tailor them individually based on using the UI prop. And I saw the preference earlier today. It does have a dark mode, as we saw, which what UI library would be worth its salt if it didn't have that in 2023. Over on ViewMastery, we have a blog tutorial where we took our FK Twitter profile page and converted that using the Nuxt UI. So as you can see, we simply used a couple avatar components, the button here, the tabs, a container, and in that container is a card, and again styled with Tailwind CSS. So very familiar workflow if you use Tailwind, and really easy to get up and running with from kind of idea, from sketch into something workable and functional. All right, now moving on to another time-saving tool. Let's talk about Nuxt Content. We started with the version 1, then the version 2, and this evolves into something in the next section that I'll get to. But this is really a module that's going to provide you with a collaborative Git-based CMS, and you can essentially write your site content that is content-heavy, such as blogs or maybe product descriptions. You can write that in Markdown, and then you get an intuitive API for fetching and displaying that content. And it's all done in a performant way, because it's going to be using automatic code splitting and lazy loading. And so your content pages will not compromise your site speed, and you're going to have that boosted user experience. And on top of all this, because of the way everything is configured, you get a full text search functionality just out of the box, and that's going to be performed client-side. So let's take a look at how we could create the simplest blog ever with Nuxt Content. All right, to do this, we would essentially write our content, write our blog post in a Markdown file. At the top here, you can see we're defining our front matter, which is the metadata for the post. And this can actually be programmatically accessed and then and utilized later. In this Markdown file, it is going to go into the content directory. And then what the content module is going to do is going to scan for Markdown files in this directory, as well as it handles JSON, YAML, and CSV, if you're using any of those as well. And then in terms of the Markdown files, it's going to parse the front matter. It's going to convert that into key value pairs, and the body is going to be converted into either a rendered HTML string or a view component, really depending on how you had configured the content module. It's also going to create an internal database to index that content, and that database is then searchable, like I mentioned, and queryable. And then Nuxt Content is going to automatically generate API endpoints for accessing this data. And when you query the content in your app, you're really making API requests to these endpoints. So let's look at querying content dynamically from inside a Vue component. As you can see here, we're using async data, and in this function, we're using query content, and that is able to query for the files, and you can see we're daisy chaining onto here, so you can make the query more complex for things such as sorting and limiting and so on based upon your needs. Then once we have what we need, we can simply render that out in the template. All right, so built on top of Nuxt Content, the Nuxt team took it even a leap further and integrated it into the Nuxt Studio. And this is going to be an intuitive workspace for you and your team to collaborate together. And when I say you and your team, not just your other developers, but your non-technical team members as well. So maybe your designers and whatnot who know some Markdown can collaborate with you easily in platform within this Nuxt Studio workplace. So to take a quick tour of this, you can see here's a home page. We sign in using our GitHub account. And like I mentioned, you can set up a team for collaborative workflow. And then in terms of project management, you can either import an existing project from GitHub, or you can start a new one from one of their themes. And there's 4 at the time of this talk, but these are going to be growing from here. They have a theme for a blog, for a portfolio, documentation site, and then a minimalist starter template. So you select one, you create it, you deploy it, and then once you have that deployed, you'll have a link at the top. You can see we have a link so we can essentially preview that deployed project. So that's what that Alpine starter template looks like. We also have a link for our repo. But really the key reason why you'd want to use this is this edit feature. So you see I went into the editor. Let's say your designer just wants to make some changes to the home page here, and they can do that within platform with no code, just the Markdown. So, and also, again, because it's a Git-based CMS, they can also commit those changes, and you can all have that collaborative workflow together. Cool. Finally, I want to bring your attention to the dev tools. If you're not using them yet, they just got a little bit easier to use because they come built in with Nuxt version 3.8. And with them, you have no more page refresh delays thanks to the hot module replacement. You code and the updates just appear instantly. And they're going to help you zoom into components to see where you can optimize your app and provide a performance edge that's pretty easy to achieve because of that insightful view into your app. And when it comes to troubleshooting, the DevTools offers clear and concise error messages, and it's when you pair it with a live preview, this means you're spending less time fixing things and more time perfecting and polishing your application. But in addition to all the features that come with it, you can also customize the DevTools, and you can do this by adding a custom tab to them. So essentially, you add your own module, and it's viewable within the DevTools as a custom tab. And you can do this in a couple different ways. You can either do it by registering your custom tab using the utility kit provided by the Nuxt DevTools, or you can use a Nuxt hook to do that. And so we're going to show a simple example demoing how to do that with a Nuxt hook. So let's say we want to, within the DevTools, have the ability to see the Nuxt docs just within the tools. We can head into our Nuxt config, and we can add a module, and we'll pass in the Nuxt instance into that, and we're going to essentially use that to attach to the DevTools hook so that we can add a new tab into it. So the hook comes up, and then we're saying take those tabs and add a new one based upon what we add in here. So we're pushing on a number of properties. So we're giving our new custom tab a name. This is the unique identifier for our tab. The title is what is actually going to be displayed in that tab. And then we can set up the icon to show that is going to be the clickable graphic for the tab. And then we can set it up to be loaded inside of an iframe and set the source URL for that content. All right, so if we look at the DevTools, we can see our code in action. So we head down here, and there is our custom tab, which pops open the Nuxt documentation website. All right, so we have come towards close to the end, and this is the pop quiz time. The first person, and we'll try to see well, that raises their hand and answers correctly is going to get it's actually pretty exclusive. We printed maybe 30 of these, and so you'll have a 1 of 30. So you'll get that hoodie. All right, so the question is, what were the 3 things we did to improve our Nuxt app's performance score? Okay, you.
Delayed hydration, image optimization, and dynamic import.
Perfect, cool. All right. I've got it over at the Vue Mastery booth, so meet me after the talk, and you'll get that hoodie. Cool, congrats. All righty, so I also wanted to let you know that the rest of you won't be leaving empty-handed, because we are actually opening up all of our content. We did so at midnight because we are in our free weekend event. So right now, all 50 of our courses are unlocked and available for you to watch. That includes all of our exclusive content with Evan Yu, whether you want to learn about more Nuxt stuff, Pinia, TypeScript, building your own composables. We've got GraphQL content, and on and on and on. Like I said, 50 courses. You can register at this link, and then that will give you access to all of the content, and you have access until the end of Sunday to consume as much as you can during that time. And then final note, if you haven't stopped by the booth, we do have the Nuxt and Pinia cheat sheets available for you, both in a physical way, but if you visit Vue Mastery, we have them digitally, along with some other cheat sheets as well. All right, so that is my time, and I thank you so much for your attention.
Amazing. You got 2 gifts. Awesome. So, first of all, we want to give him another round of applause for finishing ahead of time. That deserves some love. Time for one question. And since you're thinking about it, I have my own.
Yeah.
During your little demo, and you were talking about lazy loading, I think some cards or something like that. It was a desktop demo, if I'm not mistaken, and you talked about lazy loading. So one of the bigger problems in performance, and we see a lot of hero images being lazy loaded. And your demo was desktop, was not mobile, so I'm trying to figure out what would happen in mobile if one of those cards showed up as a hero image lazy loaded.
Showed up as a hero image, you mean?
Yeah.
Showed up as a hero image. Do you mean in terms of it is the
So what would that desktop, like that app look like in a mobile sense? Because as you mentioned, the majority, I think the default in Lighthouse is a mobile test. So I'm just trying to figure out if that hero image would end up lazy loaded.
So I'm trying to clarify for the hero image. Are you meaning the first or second icon cards in that list?
Exactly. So in the viewport, the image that would show up because it was like an image with some like an H2 text maybe or something like that. So have you sort of checked for that use case?
Not in detail, but it should have a performance improvement regardless, because it is also essentially telling, essentially delaying the fetching of the content itself. So it's not just about visibility in this case, in terms of the aspect that lends itself to giving us that performance enhancement.
Right. That deserves some love.